Hi guys, I am International Master Minh, better known as Wonderful Time from chess.com. As you can see from the board, this is the position coming from the lunar system, which is known to be a very solid stuff and a very playable position for white. But today I'm going to show you a good weapon for black to play against this, and some of the annoying tricks and some of the trap we can try to set and see if white knows some stuff against that as well. So what I'm going to recommend you guys is trying to play c5 right here at the move 2. Why we're playing this? By playing c5, we're trying to counter right away that this center pawn on d4. Normally, when playing this, white is trying to play e3 and c3 next, trying to build a strong center and a solid center on d4, and then based on that, we'll have a very good position. But since we play c5 in move 2, that gives white some headache to think like how he can defend the d4 pawns right away. There are plenty of ways white can offer this position. He can play c3 to defend a pawn, e3 with the same meaning. He can even go on f3 with the same stuff, or he can play d5, or he can take the pawn c5 right away. There are 5 variations at this point. Today I'm going to show you the intro, and I'm going to show you some of the traps in this little variation. I would try to divide my repertoire into 4 parts. Today is about the intro and about some of the traps. The second part is gonna be about some minor lines like dc5 or c3, like that. The third part is about the line d5, which is known to be like the most combative and like it comes to quite a complex position. And the final part is the most played line e3. Okay, so now time for some tricks for black in this position. And like these tricks to your amazement, it can surprise you to know that there are a lot of guys who follow this trick. So as you can remember, I do tell you that white even have this move in f3. This one is rare and it's known to be not so strong as well. Why? Because black can seem to take the pawn on d4 right away. But how can white try to take the pawn back? Queen d4 actually is the best move right here. But now simply black can play knight c6 with the tempo to attack this queen right away, and then if the queen come home, like queen d1 for instance, black can try to get a center by d5 and then bishop f6, e6 like this. Or he can even try to fianchetto to g7 and then castles with a good position. But why white cannot play knight d4 like this, which seems to be so natural? Here comes our first trap in this position. Now black goes e5, attacking both the bishop and the knight at the same time. So white is forced to take. If he doesn't take here, so he will lose the knight, but bishop e5 simply runs into the queen e5, and then we got the fork right here. So if queen d2, and we simply rout bishop, and black wins the bishop after 6 move, right? This is something, like, to your surprise, in my database, nearly 100 players, even include some 2000 players, follow this trap. So, be ready to face this, and you will be happy for sure. First. Second, another trap I want to tell you about this is when white plays c3 like this. c3, defending this pawn on d4. But now we want to show white what we want to do when we play c5. It's queen b6. Queen b6. Trying to put pressure on this d4 pawn and the b2 pawn at the same time. Right? So now we need to think about how to defend them at the same time. dc4 is bad for sure, since queen b2. And then this pawn structures is so ugly, and white also need to find a way to deal with this rook on a1, which is being attacked right now. It's not so good for white, so we can do that. b3, defend this pawn is not a good move as well, since right now black can play cd4 like this, and if pawn takes here, so e6, and then he will have a very annoying checks in this diagonal. For instance, if you play e3, so bishop b4, and then d2, and now knight e4, and now things become really tricky for white. The best move here tend to be queen b3. Queen b3. For some guys who's asking me like, what happened if you play queen d2? Which seems to be not a bad move at all. But now simply black can opt for c4 like this. Now pawn takes, and then c6. And then d5 and e6, and his pieces will develop pretty quick, and black will face no problem whatsoever. So the light continue with queen b3, defending the pawn on b2, and he wants to trade on b6. Now we're capturing this d4 pawn in the center. So now what can white do? If he plays cd4, simply quit this d4, and black is up a pawn, right? So we need to take the pawn on, to the queen on b6 like this. We capture back like this, and now if you play cd4, this is not a good position for you, since you allow knight c6, attacking the pawn on d4. How to defend? If you play knight f3, now knight b4 is really annoying move, attacking pawn knight e2 for instance, and my main threat is go knight c2. If you're not playing correctly here, something like king d2, and now knight e4 is even more crushing, and black wins right away, right? So this is something pretty good for black. So white cannot capture back in d4 in that position. Instead, need to take the knight first. Knight on b8. So if our rook takes on b8, he will simply capture back in d4, and then no more knight c6, and white will fine overall. But now here comes our second trap, which is really interesting. You know, even some strong players can fall for this. Now we'll play d3, c3, taking the pawn on c3, and we want to play cb2 like this, to take and to threaten taking the free rook on a1 on the corner. It seems like we simply sacrifice a whole piece. Bishop e5 seems to not only save the bishop on b8, but also defending b2 at the same time, right? Now it seems to be black is completely losing. cb2, bishop takes back, and white is completely good. c2, similar c3, and this rook cover the first rank. But now black got a very important and very cool move as well. Rook takes a2. This one deserves 2 exclamation mark. Rook takes a2. Now we want to simply distract the rook on a1 like this. So now what can white do? If you play knight c3, simply rook takes a1 and things over. But if you take the rook, now c2, so simply black want to promote next move, c1 queen or cb1 and then queen as well. But sadly for white, he can do absolutely nothing against this. Knight c3 simply with queen c1, and king d2 simply cb1 queen in b1. So black is absolutely winning this position, absolutely winning after move 8. The queen will swap off the board pretty quickly, but after move it, we are going to have a new queen on the board. And this is the second trap I want to show you, which is pretty interesting. And as I told you earlier, there are even some strong players can fall for this, since this thing is not straightforward, and a lot of players, if playing Blitz and do things careful enough, can fall for this trap as well. So I should show you. So today I'm going to tell you about the intro and these two traps. Hopefully you can use the traps pretty well in the game. In the next part, I'm going to tell you about the mana lines, like taking a pawn here or playing c3, like that. Hopefully you understand what I'm talking and you enjoy these traps. And see you in the second part.